Hey guys, this is Alex, and welcome to the Two Dudes, Brews, and Reviews podcast. On today's episode, my co-host Austin and I are talking about David Lynch's 2001 surreal mystery thriller, Mulholland Drive. We attempt to decipher the indecipherable through some of the film's most popular interpretations, but I'm just glad that we kept our sanity while doing so. So, if you like what you hear, consider subscribing to the podcast, give us a rating and review, and maybe even tell your friends about us. With that being said, we hope you enjoy the show.
I don't want to get so far away where we forget, it's weird to acknowledge, but Elizabeth is here with us right now. She's got her headphones on and reading. She's going to hang out with us tonight, but she made us a cocktail, which is, she kind of did a little bit of a twist on the title of our film tonight of Mulholland Drive. Now, this isn't the same exact drink, but because it doesn't have coffee liqueur in it, but pretty fucking good. It's a grapefruit cocktail.
Now that we're drinking this, thinking about coffee liqueur being in it seems kind of wrong.
Yeah. It's got Campari in it. It's pretty bitter. It's got grapefruit juice in it and some Prosecco and some gin. Pretty good, man. And then we got a fucking pairing with Miller Lite on the side, which is kind of nice.
And then from my request, I really wanted to do something with coffee tonight, just because coffee, for some reason, plays a thematic purpose in a lot of David Lynch films. He drinks 10 to 20 cups a day himself. So in the refrigerator right now, we haven't opened it up yet, but what was the name of the brand?
I don't know what the brand is, but the title of the beer is Twitchy.
Okay.
It's a coffee stout, imperial coffee stout.
Single origin Ethiopian. Yeah.
Okay. It's gonna be good shit. It's 10%. So these will be our drinks, and then we can split one of those.
Okay.
Because I know we're gonna go long, so I'm sure we'll have plenty to drink. So it's no big deal. But yeah, man, I don't think I've been this excited to talk about a film that you've recommended in a long time. Not to say that I'm not excited to do the podcast, but I think this is something really special in front of us.
To be fair, I have been throwing out Hail Marys for months now, just random shit. So this is the first time that I've been excited about my own pick as well. Okay. So I completely get it.
I will preface that I think this may be one of the most complicated movies we will ever talk about, ever. And I think we'll be on the same page for the most part. I think there's an interpretation of the film that is the most streamlined that I think we'll be on the same page. Now, I will say that I have seen the film once, and I have rewatched scenes outside of that watch. So, things that I wanted to touch base with, and I still don't even know that I'll even remember to talk about everything that we want to talk about. I think I've wrote the most notes that I have in a long time. I think it's safe to say this may be one of the greatest films ever made.
I'd have a hard time disagreeing. I think it's shot to the top of my favorite movies of all time list easily.
Yeah, it's really intimidating, and I will say on my first watch, I had so much internal commentary and really trying to understand the direction that these scenes were taking place. What's the theme here? Especially from beginning to the middle of the film, I really felt okay, this is a commentary on Hollywood or just the dark side of systems that we take for granted, like film or politics. Somewhere there's some sort of conspiracy happening here. There's some really dark, evil shit happening. And I'm David Lynch is telling us, Kubrick, there's something dark in the, and then when it ended, I'm no, I don't really think that's what that was about. Even though I think it really does commentate on that to a degree, I don't really know that that's what the film was about.
I think it's definitely there, even in some ways that you may not have even caught. I guess I should start by asking, after you watched the movie for the first time, the credits roll, you turn it off, did you run straight to Google?
Yes.
Okay.
And that immediately filled in my question of okay, what was that really about? I think I watched a 20-minute video, and it kind of broke down a couple scenes. And 5 minutes into the video, I was I get it. All right, it's fine. I got it. No big deal.
The dark side of Hollywood stuff, I had caught a lot of that over a few of my watches over the last couple of months. I watched this 4 times over the last 3 weeks, by the way, including I watched the final 30 minutes last night just on its own, so I could just concentrate on that aspect of it. But then I went and watched an hour-long video explaining everything that possibly could be explained. And some of it I had caught on my own. And then some of it I would have never gotten. Lynch himself would say, no, that's probably not it. Like, he's never going to explain. He's never going to give anybody any hint that they're right, even if you laid it out for him perfectly right in front of him.
I think that's a testament to, like, good art, though, when you're like, no, I made it, and, like, part of the process, the artistic process, is letting people interpret it to the fucking ends of the earth.
He's taking this shit to the grave, I'm pretty sure.
I read I read a review of someone that spoke highly of the film, and they said, this is one of the greatest films ever made for those that get it. And that's it. Like, and then, like, even if you don't get it, then it's probably like the dumbest shit you've ever seen.
I feel like there's some aspects that people would find intriguing at the very least. Maybe. I don't know. There's some, like, pretty dumb movie watchers out there, though.
Some Transformers 7 watchers out there, that would never get that.
Oh, for sure. Where do we start?
I think it might be easier for me to, like, kind of kick us off because I feel like a little bit more of a beginner compared to you with David Lynch.
Yeah, this is definitely a fresh start for you.
So can we establish, I think it'll make it easier to talk about the film and as a whole, what it meant as a whole, like general plot of it being essentially a dream?
Yes, we definitely should get that out right here.
So the basis is our main character, played by Naomi Watts, is having a dream the entire film. Maybe outside of that, maybe 20 minutes to 15 to 20 minutes is set in reality. It is Naomi Watts' character, Diane/Betty, being a new girl to Hollywood, trying to come up as an actress on her own, come to Hollywood, staying at her aunt's apartment while she's working on a film. And her goal is to audition for a role. And along the way, we get our character of Camilla Rhodes, or Rita, played by Laura Harring. She gets in a car wreck,
which causes her to have amnesia.
And it's essentially a detective noir with two female leads trying to figure out who this girl is. And on the way, we develop a lesbian relationship and a conspiracy in Hollywood.
Even though the lesbian stuff literally comes out of nowhere.
But it makes sense when you finish it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fucking out of left field. It makes no sense. When you're watching, I'm like, whoa. Okay. Like, I guess that's like the most general view I can put on this, but like, it's a dream, and in the end, you essentially, Naomi Watts has Laura Harring's character killed in real life, puts a hit on her. And the dream is the depression, sleep your life away dream that she has about Camilla, Laura Harring's character.
It's basically her making everything in her own life right in this dream world.
Yes. It's like it's her subconscious trying to fix reality.
Yeah.
I guess that's the only way I can put it. We're going to throw down a lot of big words around tonight.
Now, okay, the dream and reality plot in this movie is the most widely recognized theory on what's going on. And before I watched this explanation video last night, I was even kind of questioning that because it almost felt a little too simple. And I'm not saying that the first part isn't a dream. Even the word dream feels kind of wrong to me because I don't know if this second part is actually reality. Do you know what I mean? The second half is honestly more surreal in some ways than the first half is.
Yeah. So I want to say, I think the first half of the film, honest to God, even though there are like touch of surrealism littered throughout, like there's a sense of wrongness involved in a lot of scenes. The first half, there's like a sense of comfort involved. And it almost, honest to God, reminded me of Tarantino, Reservoir Dogs, like just shooting the shit. We're going to have characters talk. We're going to enjoy the dialogue. There's like a level of comfort involved with that. And then like in the second half, I felt like things get so derailed. And I think a part of that is like the editing involved. I think the editing in the back half is so much more harsh on the human psyche.
Everything is. The filming style, the music changes, the acting style changes. That first half has a very like uncanny valley kind of feel to it. Like the dialogue is a little cheesy at times.
Yeah, like it's off kilter. the emotional, like, facial delivery is so uncomfortable and out of pocket. I'm like, the first example of that is in the first maybe 10 minutes where we meet the old couple that are like getting her off the plane, and like them smiling in the car while I was watching this. And I think it can still be applicable to a theory. I'm like, oh my God, they're like Satan. Like, they're demons. They're like demons of Hollywood, like taking this innocent soul and they're going to crush it. And like, but when we end the film, when they arrive at the end of the film, I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I thought, which by the way, I have never been so terrified in my life.
Oh my God, it's so daunting.
There are so many times in the film where I'm like, I am so afraid right now, and I don't know why. It's nightmare fuel.
Even when nothing's happening, there are scenes where you're like, something is going to happen.
It's like a class act in fucking suspense. There's so much time to breathe where like you're just like being taken along for the ride. That's where like that surrealism dreamscape really shines through. It's just like the tone that's being set throughout the entire film of just being uncomfortable, like not really understanding why you're here or why we're doing this a lot of the times. And I think it's more prevalent once we move through, the middle of the film where pieces are starting to fall into place a little bit more that are more tangible. God, we're going to be all over the place.
We'll find our footing eventually, but getting like the intro out
it's so fucking high concept that it's a challenging task. But I'm like, oh my God, these are demons that have like led this character to death. They're going to strip this character's innocence away. But then there are just so many ways to interpret that happening, though. Like, I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, they like, you could interpret them as demons or something, or like some sort of evil people. But I'm like, also, the people knocking at the door could be the detectives that are being mentioned, looking for Diane. I'm like, okay, well then, is that person knocking, are those our detectives at the beginning of the film that we were introduced to? Like, there are just so many questions, like, where things are tied together so symbolically, and there are like 9 different paths a fucking symbol can take in this film. And like, the whole film is symbolism, like all over the place.
When it comes to the old people, I feel like I have a decent understanding of what they stand for. But that scene where they leave the airport and they're just smiling in the car, I have no idea actually like why we choose to focus on them for a minute. I saw a theory last night that said, and I don't know if you remember this or not, but there's a first person perspective of their car driving, and a van pulls out in front of them, and it looks just like the van that the hitman drives later on in the movie. But I don't know how these two things tie together. So there's going to be a lot of those, like those kind of occurrences. Like, I think I kind of know what this means, but in this context, I have no idea. So
my God,
we're going to try.
I'm going to have a heart attack trying to do this film.
And I also have thoughts on the whole dream versus reality thing, but I'll try to sprinkle those out throughout instead of like dumping it
at the front.
Yeah,
I get it.
I can't do that.
I think outside the film being extremely uncomfortable a lot of the times, I would say like 90% of the film is uncomfortable, but like there are like some extremely comedic elements like littered throughout that I think was like really strange. Like I wasn't really expecting. Like Ed Kesher, is that his name? Adam Kesher.
Yeah, Adam.
Like him getting kicked out of his own home, like while being cheated on by his wife, by Billy Ray Cyrus.
This is so fucking random. Even when he catches them, the wife says, now you've done it. Like,
what? I ain't no way to treat your wife. I don't care what she's done, man. There ain't no way to treat your woman. I'm like, what? I will kill you. I would kill you. I don't understand what's happening here.
I think a lot of the stuff involving Betty's wide-eyed optimism is kind of funny, especially when she like first shows up in like LAX. She has such this innocent dough face, like, oh my God, Hollywood,
I'm here.
Man, look out, here I come. Did you notice that when she's telling the old people goodbye, all of the dialogue is like ADR'd as if it's like a 50s movie all of a sudden?
Yeah, it's so strange.
Like, that's fucking bizarre. They're just really playing up like the Hollywood dream. Like, I don't know, it feels like kind of like a satire.
It's tacky,
in
yeah.
a way.
It's tacky on purpose.
Oh, my bags. Where to? Like, it's like so corny in a way.
Oh my God. Jesus. We're in for a long one.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Okay.
The first time going through the movie, do you think the story of that first half
how did you feel about that? Like from a narrative sense, like the mystery of finding out who Rita is.
Yeah. I think early on when it's established that we're gonna kill Laura Harring's character of Camilla / Rita, and just so happens some fucking hooligans are driving like crazy. You know, happenstance, we have a car wreck and she makes it out and then walks down a fucking hill, falls into
like
LA.
Yeah.
We get like the detectives, like we get fucking Robert Forster, our fucking vacuum store from the Breaking Bad universe, just hanging out, no problem. Like when we get introduced to his character, I'm like, oh, okay, I see where this is going. And then like
he's never seen
and
again.
You never see him again. And I'm like, okay, well, I was expecting that to like come to fruition in the back half of the film, like where like, his presence would show up, or like we would have some expository scenes with him and, you know, trying to figure out the case. Never happened. And I'm like, okay. But like early in my pacing, I'm like, this is where we're heading. Like this is what's going to happen. And then we get really bizarre stuff in regards to like the hitman, him taking the black book from that guy.
The first like 30 to 40 minutes is very vignette driven almost. Like,
And that's what I think that when I was comparing to Tarantino, I felt like, okay, we're here for vignettes. This is the pacing.
it kind of takes a long time for a character to reappear in the movie. Like we have the stuff with Rita and it focuses on her for a while. Then we cut to two guys at Winky's talking, and then
Not just talking, but yes.
We'll get into that scene for sure. But then it cuts to like this chain of phone calls all of a sudden, and then Betty and Rita meet. Like it's like 30, 40 minutes before like anything starts to gel together. And it kind of like does a good job of kind of keeping you like on your toes.
Yeah, it keeps you guessing the entire time of like where we're heading. Like what is the story being set up for? What are we trying to establish? I think what's really interesting about that is that all those clues really amount to nothing in the end. Like, you know, I feel like a good chunk of those were like, they don't make sense unless you try to frame it in a certain theory.
Like how it applies to Diane's life and like what she's covering up in her own.
When you like, we can talk about Winky's Diner. Like when this scene's happening, I'm like, okay, we have a paranoid schizophrenic meeting with his psychologist. Like that's immediately what my thoughts are. I'm like, okay, this is the scene really establishes itself for that reason in my eyes through that first viewing. I'm like, okay, this is a psychiatrist trying to help his patient, like trying to tackle some sort of like obsession he has or an anxiety, kind of like we're trying to treat a disorder in some way here. We're trying to talk through a problem of his. And he's like, okay, well, I've had a dream about this place. That's why we're here. That's why I wanted to meet here. I'm like, okay, I don't understand where this is going. And like by the end of it, I'm like, I'm fucking terrified. Why are we doing this? Like, even though I know something is coming, I'm like, I didn't know what to expect. And it fucking freaked me out.
You definitely didn't expect what actually comes out at the end.
I've seen that still of the fucking evil hobo before.
Oh, you have?
I've seen a picture of that.
Like in what context?
Like just looking up the movie and like looking up movie and like you'll like go to images and I'm like, oh, like there's an evil hobo here. Even though I don't really know what to call it. It's like some sort of evil, like it looks like fucking like the orcs in fucking Lord of the Rings when they're busting them out of the bubbles in the ground. I don't know if you've seen that, but for those that know, I think it's in Two Towers. I don't know if you've seen Two Towers yet.
I've not gotten there yet. I think in the credits, it's referred to as just the bum. This is a kind of a common occurrence in David Lynch movies, a cosmic entity that represents something. Like Lost Highway has someone called the Mystery Man.
Okay.
Like a midget Dracula figure or something. And,
Okay.
And he's freaky too. Eraserhead has the woman in the furnace, and I think Inland Empire has something just called the Phantom. Yeah, it's just usually a cosmic entity to like get an idea across.
Okay.
And I guess we'll probably like dissect the bum at some point. I don't know if I'm ready for it quite yet.
Yeah.
The scene itself.
It's so uncomfortable. I think it does a really good job of like kind of establishing a sense of suspense that we're in for. I think like when we're first trying to kill Camilla on the road is like a really great introduction to that, but I really felt like this scene is the one that really opens it up. It kind of deepens that paranoid schizophrenic feel that we're going to go through the entire film with.
The placement of it, like here, second, like this is the second set of characters we're being introduced to, is very strange to me for some reason. Like here at the beginning,
Yeah.
like it's a, I don't know, it's a weird structural choice.
That's the other thing. You're like, okay, these characters are not going to return until much later. I mean, it's all like jam-packed. I feel like it's all like tries to come in and blow off at the very end. I mean, it's like the last 15 minutes of the film where I feel like, okay, this is our hoorah. We're going to fucking shoot all our rounds off.
And even then, you're not going to catch like
everything, yeah.
Not even close to everything. There's a lot of stuff in this scene that I'm going to bring up later in the conversation.
Yeah.
But in terms of like just the scene, how it plays out, the camera movement during their conversation is super interesting to me. Usually when you do a scene with two characters talking to each other like at a table, you have two static cameras and you cut between the two of them. You're looking at one guy and then the other guy speaks and now we're looking at him. In this scene, the camera is really floaty. Like it's like lifting up above their heads and like it's like kind of out of focus at times, and it starts at different points each time it cuts to the other guy. Like there's no true grounded position of the camera. Like it gives it a very otherworldly feel.
And I think part of that, to me, if you want to tie in things into dreamlike states, dreams kind of have a sense of, you know, something was conveyed to you, but you really can never like place your view of like okay, I want to talk about, okay, for instance, I'll talk about like kind of a nightmare I had lately. It wasn't really even a nightmare. It was like just kind of like fever dreamish. Like it was really intense and vivid, but it didn't make much sense. Like I had a dream that I was sitting in my living room and my dog ran full speed at the wall and broke its neck.
Oh my God, that's terrifying.
It was awful. It was terrible. But like when I try to frame it in my mind, I'm like, okay, I know that happened, but I can't really completely visualize how that was shown to me.
You just had the feeling of it.
Yeah. That's kind of what's happening here. Like the camera, you have to have some sort of static way to portray a scene on film. I mean, it has to obey the laws of fucking physics here. But I know Lynch is somebody that's super obsessive with like transcendental meditation and dreams and lucid dreaming. When you're trying to like convey that message across the screen, you really have to like play with stuff like that. Like keep things. You're right. It's super floaty. The track of looking over the shoulder and they're saying you were standing right there,
and the camera literally turns around as if you were at the booth sitting with them. Yeah. And then it makes that moment when he turns around and sees his buddy standing there for real. It's like, oh God, it's just like the dream. Like it's freaky.
It blends that shit so well, and it's so uncomfortable. The way time in this film feels so dilated, like things just like stretch all over the place. I think like another like really prominent scene that I think that happens in is like our post-lesbian sex scene where it's like, okay,
the first one,
we need to go somewhere.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, she's like, it's 2:00 in the morning. And then all of a sudden, like we arrive, you know, we establish a shot like, okay, we're going to go into Club Silencio here. And we're like standing in the parking lot, like fucking 40 yards away, and we're going to slow zoom into this door. And then like, okay, this is a theater full of people at fucking 2:00 in the morning. Like that doesn't really make sense to me.
No.
Like stuff like that where it's just like time does not make a whole lot of sense.
It really doesn't. And I was trying to figure out like what length of time occurs during this dream sequence. And I feel like it's not more than like a day or two.
No. And I think it's really bizarre because we're cutting around so much. We're like, especially early on, we're hopping from, you know, vignette to vignette. But yeah, like she's auditioning for a role. It does feel like maybe like 3 days at a maximum. You know, it's so strange.
And time's even more fucked up in the second part.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Fuck. How do we get there?
We'll just bounce around.
Do we feel like we've established enough?
I think so. We don't need to like bound ourselves down with so much of the theory. We'll bring things in when it's appropriate, but we can just talk about scenes, acting, and dialogue, and you know the stuff we usually talk about on the podcast.
Oh God, it feels like it's so unconventional that we can't even tackle it that way. But yeah, you're right. You know, something that I want to talk about that I think can be easily overmissed because I think this is such a concept-heavy, hard to wrap your head around film. I think Naomi Watts' performance is about as close as you can get to perfect. Like I think the range that her role allows her to inhabit is otherworldly. Like it's some of the best acting I've seen in a long time.
I completely agree. This is one of my favorite performances of all time. And she hits a lot of different notes throughout the whole thing.
My favorite scene a couple scenes that I think really help convey this idea. Because we kind of already talked about, like, there's a tacky nature early on to her character. But I think when she's rehearsing her lines with Rita in the kitchen of his apartment, I'm like, I was here for it. I'm like, it felt like the innocent young actress.
It's kind of cute.
And it is. Yeah, it is. It's really charming. And then when you like put that next to the scene where she's actually auditioning in front of these executives, I'm like, holy shit. You go from this comfortable, cute and charming, fun rehearsal between two young women to this extremely dark, erotic, full emotional performance that she gives to these executives. It's like fucking performance inception for Naomi Watts. And I'm like, oh my God, like the environment that this film sets up for these characters is allows for like this crazy dynamic range that I don't really know that you can get anywhere else, because these characters are not static. When I think about like a great performance, I'm like, okay, DiCaprio or Pitt in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But I'm like, that's a very, even though it's like kind of chaotic and fun as that movie is, like those are very controlled performances. Like the characters and the roles that they're playing are extremely linear, and they have to abide by like what feels like a rule book. And in this film, Naomi Watts' character plays the sweet, innocent, young, charming girl that everyone loves. Like it's like granddaughter energy. There's a sense of purity and innocence. And then like there are moments littered throughout where that same character in this world that we're creating is going to be dark and erotic and lustful. And then you have her in the end, like full-blown schizophrenia, crackhead energy, sweat under her eyes, hasn't showered in days. Like it's just really dynamic. And like that's impressive to me. That alone could sell me, you know, for a perfect performance.
I would have to sit here and think for a long time before even finding something that even remotely compares to the range here.
Yeah.
It's funny that you brought up Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because when you said great performances, I literally thought Leo on the set of the Western with the little girl. And she says, that's some of the best acting I've ever seen, mister.
Yeah.
That's just funny to me.
It's some great acting. I mean, those are Pitt and DiCaprio. I feel like those are my favorite performances by those two actors. Excuse me. Even compare that to a film like this. I've never really seen anything created like that, where you have the ability for an actress to. It was like so unhinged, but like it works inside of our script. It's so unique.
You're almost guaranteed to get something special when you have your actor playing an actor acting within the movie.
Yeah.
Like I love that dynamic.
Yeah, for sure.
It's always so much fun to me. When we jump forward in this movie to Diane, Naomi Watts, I almost don't even recognize her. She looks different. Her voice is different. Her talking cadence isn't the same.
Yeah, her mannerisms are all over the place.
Like she really embodies two separate people. It's insane to me. Not even nominated for an Oscar, by the way.
What?
No nomination.
Wow.
This has to be one of the biggest snubs in history to me. This movie didn't get like any nominations. Best director, I think, is the only thing it got.
Oh my God. I don't even know how to talk about that.
It's just one of those things, man. Years down the line, we all talk about movies like this, and then whatever won Best Picture in 2001.
You're like, you forgot about it.
I want to say that everybody forgot about it, but I can't remember what it is. So, probably like Lord of the Rings, Two Towers.
Probably.
I think that actually won Best Picture that year. So
that's my favorite Lord of the Rings film, by the way.
Not a bad choice. Definitely not a bad choice.
You know, not to say that Laura Harring doesn't give a good performance, but I will say that her character, her role is so much more castrated compared to Naomi Watts' performance. And I think it's because like her character like kind of calls like to be pretty much lobotomized the entire time. So like
she's a deer in the headlights.
Yeah, it's like so like there really isn't much to say a lot of the times, although I will say her presence is like extremely erotic. And I think that's something to be said. The way that her character, when her presence on the screen is very magnetic in somewhat of a dark manner. And I think there's at least something there worth admiring.
I think if it says anything in terms of her performance specifically, what else have you ever seen her in?
Yeah, I don't know who this person is.
she never did shit after this. I think like The Punisher in the mid 2000s is like another semi-successful movie that she did. I've heard she's not great in general, and her playing this role is pretty much perfect for her. Like just very wooden.
It works. I mean, it's a good use of an actress.
Even in the second half of the movie where she is a different person, you don't see much of her really.
No, her character feels so manipulative in the back half.
It's all action, like not like dialogue.
No. Yeah, it's all silent performance. Yeah, even in those scenes, I'm like, oh my god, there feels like there's a sense of dreamlike quality to this. There's something off. Like in particular, where like her and Kesher are about to announce their marriage, I'm like, okay, this is so fucking over the top.
They really ham it up.
Oh my god, they're like laughing like a couple of fucking psychos.
I had somehow tricked myself into thinking they actually announced the engagement, but they don't. They
don't say a word.
No.
Like a plate crashes and then we like get pulled.
Yeah, to a completely different location.
God. The editing in this film is a class fucking act.
It's insane.
It's so good.
And it's stylized in very different ways depending on the situation and like what that situation requires.
Speaking of situation editing and like framing and composition, I fucking love the conspiracy Hollywood shit that we get into in the first like I don't know, it's probably like in the about 40 minutes in or so. We kind of get littered in with that.
Well, the introduction to Adam and like the boardroom scene.
Yeah, and like Mr. Hollywood, whatever the fuck that guy's name is, like Mr. Rogue or something like that. The guy that sits in the chair that doesn't say a fucking word.
Oh, Mr. Rooks.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I love the way the camera plays off of like reflection on the glass. We have an executive walking in and talking to him, and he's answering his own questions rhetorically, just like the presence of this character, like watching. That's where I was like, oh my god, there's this sense of evil conspiracy, like that. I felt like there's a sense of trueness involved. Lynch is trying to say something here.
I think he definitely is. He won't put his name on something unless he gets final cut on the movie. What is the most, I hate to say the most hated David Lynch movie, but like the least well received? Do you know what it is?
Is it Dune? Yeah, because the fucking producers fucked that shit up.
He had a 4.5 hour long movie that had all the content of the book, and they chopped it down to 2 hours, and he took his name off of it. Like I think certain cuts of the movie say directed by Alan Smithy, which is a generic Hollywood term for I don't want my name on this movie. It's weird that Lynch's Dune failed so bad, by the way. A movie about dreams, basically. Like dreams are a big part in Dune. I don't know. I would have loved to see his vision of that. I'm sure he played up the weirdness way more than Villeneuve ever would.
Yeah, there's
I've seen some clips.
You ever seen like the fucking like the orange monster thing that drives the ship?
I don't know, actually.
It's like in a giant vat. Yeah. It's a thing that's in the book where these people have so much spice that it like rots, like it turns them into like a monster. Like,
oh, that sounds interesting, actually.
That's how they navigate space travel, is with spice. Like it's the commodity that like their awareness, it's insane.
The only clips from Lynch's Dune that I've seen have Patrick Stewart running around with like a cat attached to him for some reason.
What the fuck?
Or maybe it's a pug, like a dog. I can't remember. It's wild. But Mulholland Drive.
Yeah, Mulholland Drive, we're back. Come on.
Adam Kesher, boardroom scene, played somewhat straight, but also becomes completely absurd at times.
Yeah.
Like this espresso deal, which is fucking bizarre to me. I know it has a tie-in later.
Napkin.
This is one of the finest espressos in the world.
Shit.
What are the brothers' names?
The Luigi brothers or something like that?
I think one of their names is Luigi. The Castagnoli?
Let me find this for you. I got the cast pulled up right
Okay.
here. He plays Castiglione.
Yeah. I'm sure. Italian
the
pronunciation.
Castiglione brothers.
Yeah, okay. Espresso guy here is played by Angelo Badalmenti, a.k.a. also the man that writes and performs all of the scores for David Lynch movies. And
really?
Yeah. He just died last year, by the way. And then the other guy is Dan Hedaya, I believe.
Yes.
And he played the lead, or one of the leads, in the Coen brothers' debut film, Blood Simple, and he was great in that.
Okay.
Now, I think some of these like random famous people showing up, like Robert Forster or
Robert
Dan
Forster.
Hedaya.
Fuck yeah.
This is something I meant to bring up earlier, but I didn't want to like cut off your train of thought. Mulholland Drive was supposed to be a TV pilot.
Yeah, I read something about this. Because, like, that's what Twin Peaks is. Like, it's a TV show, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But is it also a feature film?
There's a film called Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me, which is a prequel about the woman that is murdered in Twin Peaks. Because Twin Peaks itself is a mystery about who murdered Laura Palmer.
Okay.
Mulholland Drive started as a semi-spin-off of the Twin Peaks world. It's supposed to be linked in some way. And they filmed a 90-minute pilot. ABC bought it. The president of ABC watched it while on the phone at 6 a.m, not paying attention, and he decided he hated it, and they canceled the show.
Okay.
And a French production company stepped in like a year later, funded $2 more million into the project so they could finish it as a feature. So a lot of like the first hour and a half was meant for TV. And I think it kind of explains a lot of the differences in like filming style like, between the two of them.
That makes so much more sense. Okay.
Very like soap opera at times.
Yeah. Like there's a sense of like fuzz, like a warm fuzz on everything early on.
So I'm sure like early drafts of this story probably had Robert Forster and these other guys coming back in some capacity.
Okay.
But he got
that makes
shafted.
sense now. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then to get everybody back together again, like a year and a half later, and like film, he had to come up with a whole new ending for this series that was meant to stretch out. And who knows what the original intention of the series was?
See, I literally wrote down in my notes like about like Robert Forster and stuff. I'm like, okay, I have a feeling like there is footage and a script for these characters laying around somewhere that like didn't make it into the final cut. And that makes so much more sense because I didn't know that. And I'm like, okay, like I felt like there was a sense of expansion that these characters were setting up and then they just get fucking sidelined.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing because I think when the film ends, it's like, okay, yeah, like I don't really need that. But I think that kind of adds a level of segmentation to how I really feel about it now because feeling like there really isn't a sense of direction is okay because I think it kind of works for the betterment of the film because it not really knowing what's going on allows for a deeper understanding every time you watch it. And I feel like this is a film that when I do rewatch it, although I don't know that like I'll willingly go to it very often, I'll probably think about it in the back of my head. But
I thought about this one for months.
It fucked with me. Like I watched it Thursday night and on Friday afternoon at work, I'm like, God, that was fucking weird.
It really makes me question a lot of like the symbolic tie-ins, like how intentional are they? Or like did Lynch know it was going to fail and like meant to just finish it as a feature later on? But like some of the interpretations I've seen make everything seem so tied together that it's like impossible that he didn't intend for it to be that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Piss break.
Let me crack this on the air. It don't matter. Split it. We're busting open the coffee stout. It's R. Shea Brewing. They're from Akron, Ohio. Okay.
Oh.
It's called Twitchy. It's an Ethiopian coffee imperial stout. It is 9.5%. We are going to be splitting this, so it is going to be very strong. This is going to be the one that hopefully rides us home, but I doubt it. God, this shit is dense. I almost wish it was nitro. I think nitro spoils me when it comes to coffee stouts.
Oh, I love nitro beer and coffee.
That's good. Fuck. It's not super cold, so you can really taste it. That's good.
Yo. I love that.
Be very careful, please, God.
This is like a dark roast tasting.
Yeah, it's
coffee.
very, very intense. It's really good. Wow, that's a special beer right there. That's one of the best coffee stouts I've had.
I think I agree. This is going to be a slow sipper for sure.
It's very rich.
This will last me a while for sure.
Yeah, we'll leave that sit. But I feel like it's almost meant to be drank at room temperature.
I feel like when certain beers, when they're cold, lose some of their flavor.
Oh, like 100%.
Guinness is like that.
They crush your taste buds. Anyway, I wanted to ask you, you have like, you're more familiar with Lynch. So I guess, like, how does this film stack up for you compared to the rest of his filmography that you've seen?
It's definitely my favorite
Okay.
out of everything I've seen so far.
Now, have you seen Blue Velvet?
I have seen Blue Velvet a few times. I think the surrealism that everybody talks about when it comes to Lynch actually almost exclusively belongs to what a lot of people refer to as the LA trilogy, which starts with Lost Highway, Mulholland Drive is the second movie, and then Inland Empire is the third.
Okay.
And they all kind of deal with like split psyche to a degree, like multiple levels of reality. I think like Inland Empire has like 3 or 4 levels as compared to the two that are here.
Oh my God.
And Lost Highway is the exact same way, although I like that one quite a bit less than Mulholland Drive. But if you're wanting to expand like outside, like you want to get into Lynch, Blue Velvet is like a pretty great, straightforward Hitchcock style thriller. I mean, you can go to The Elephant Man, which is...
Or Eraserhead, right?
Eraserhead is very surreal. I almost forgot to mention how weird that one is. And that's
his debut. Yeah,
that's his debut. So it's a little rough around the edges, but very interesting. Elephant Man is like an Academy Award-winning, like Oscar-style film. Very straightforward. And then he has like The Straight Story, which is a Disney movie. If you want to get into Lynch, there's a lot of different places you can hop over to.
Television as well. I mean, Twin Peaks and
yeah.
I guess I was curious because this being my introduction, I'm very interested now. Here's the thing, though, with that. I don't feel like he's a director that I really want to tackle in that obsessive way. I know I've mentioned it previously. I almost think I mentioned it last time we did the podcast when you recommended it, but I have read a couple of novels by the author of Haruki Murakami. He's a Japanese author, and he's still alive today. His writing style has been compared to the way Lynch's films are, where it's extremely surreal. And like, there's a book called Kafka on the Shore.
You've told me about this one, I think.
A man that's on disability can talk to cats, and a kid that ran away from home almost certainly fucks his own mother. And it's like, okay, like this is a David Lynch film. Completely surreal. There's dreamlike qualities to them. I read A Wild Goose Chase as well, or excuse me, a Wild Sheep Chase, which that's about a guy that's trying to find a sheep with a star on its back that was taken in a photo. And it's I actually really didn't even like it, but it was surreal. It didn't make any sense. And when it was finished, I'm like, okay, that was a unique take, but I don't even really know if I enjoy his books, but the surrealism aspect of those books kind of like allowed me to understand a little bit of like symbolism and like the way that it would be tied into this film. And like, I'm not stupid. You knew I'd be able to digest this film in some capacity.
This isn't even the first time we've done like a surreal movie on the podcast.
We've done, I honestly, like, honest to God, I think Spirited Away, that was so early on and we were like a lot more uncomfortable back then. That film is like kind of insane.
Yeah.
Like conceptually it is so frustrating, like to try to explain to somebody, you know, I mean, it's the same as this. So I'm very interested in what's to come, but I'm also like not excited to jump into it because it's so daunting. And I think you have to take a little bit of a time because if you watch one film of his, I feel like you could get so obsessive with just the one film.
Yeah.
And like there's only so much space his filmography I want to let him take in my mind. You know what I mean? There's only so much of Austin to go around.
I think like both of those things apply to me. I'm very obsessed with this movie. Mulholland Drive is taking up a lot of my brain capacity at any given moment. I'm endlessly fascinated by what he does. Like I want to see everything that he's done.
I think like as a director, I think his worldview really shines through in the film. In preparation for the podcast, like trying to like, you know, learn about him and like do some research on him and like try to understand like who this guy is. I'm like super interested in like transcendental meditation and stuff. I want to get into that, and you have to like go and get pay for like a licensed teacher to teach you and stuff. But I'm like, I don't know if I'm really ready for that, but I'm interested. And like, I know you can like, there's people in Cincinnati that could teach you. I know that that's a possibility that could come up for me in the future because of this guy. Even if I don't take that, say I go to this course or go try to learn this and I don't integrate it into my life, I'm like, I want to understand what it is because of the way he views the world. Like, I'm just interested in that.
Are you able to get a taste of that meditation style like through YouTube, or like is it really you gotta pay?
You really do have to pay. It's like to actually understand, but like some of the concepts involved can be easily explained to you. Anyway, I don't want to get like too deep into that, but he has an interesting perspective that I think is really unique for a director. I think when you think about great directors such as Villeneuve or Tarantino, like their worldview is Tarantino. I'm a film nerd. I want to make callbacks and reference, and I want to honor certain aspects of film in my own fun way. And I'm going to say fuck you to anybody that thinks regardless. And that, like, he's had that fuck you mentality the entire time. And then when you think about Villeneuve, you're right earlier when you're saying, like, he's cold, he's precise,
big, like, spectacle type shit in a way. And Tarantino's like colliding trashy schlock with high art, basically.
Yeah, and then you have Nolan, which is super high concept, deep philosophy. I think it's approached in a little bit more, even though his films can come off extremely cold at times, there is an essence of warmth within them, this life and expression that he pushes through his films that they feel so full circle. They feel so complete. Directors, the way they push their views through film is really, watching this film has like helped me see that more. Because I think this is like something that I've never seen before. You know, it's something that is so different.
I feel like I can barely see the flavors of like influence that he has. Like, I know he's a big fan of Alfred Hitchcock and Kubrick, and some of that stuff is here. The Kubrick stare.
Yeah.
Have you heard this? There's like a million Kubrick stares in this movie, like very close up on the eyes, two people staring at each other. So we're seeing one set of eyes, then cutting to the other, music being over dramatic on top of it. A lot of like first person perspectives through environments. And it's never really clear whose perspective we're seeing. It's almost like a ghost, like within the movie that we're following. And that's like in a lot of his movies. Like that's kind of his style.
When you like mentioning the Kubrick stare, I think that's one of the strongest parts of this film, where there is so much, like, even though it's so confusing and you don't really understand why we're here or why something's happening, the ability to like just let characters sit and allow this crazy situation, whatever's unfolding, you still allow that to resonate by like just giving air on the screen, by like just allowing characters to do essentially nothing. It feels so much more like you're working through a film rather than like being fed.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I feel like you're so much more involved with the viewing experience when you allow your audience to like really sit with an emotion. It honestly feels like extremely natural, like to human expression.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, it doesn't feel like you're on a track necessarily.
Because sometimes dialogue is like a chess game where it's like, okay, my character will say this and this character will have this reaction because it's going to push this agenda in the plot in this direction. And like, that's all words. But when you have characters sit back and do nothing, it really creates so much more of an experience rather than being fed.
And that makes the journey here so much more exciting, because you're wondering, how does this all tie together? Does it tie together?
Yeah.
Even, especially on that first watch. And even after watching it 5 times, I feel like I'm still doing work to uncover certain things about it.
Is there like some richness that you've come across, like in the viewings that you've had, that we haven't really touched upon yet?
Yes, absolutely. But I don't know how to litter it in yet. I feel like we barely talked about like the base level of scenes.
One scene that like I didn't really understand, and I still don't to a large extent, is the hitman scene where he kills the guy with the book, and he kills the girl in the room next door, and he kills the vacuum cleaner guy.
So you're looking for the meaning here.
Yeah. Well, from my understanding, I think it's like it's trying to portray Naomi Watts' character, her subconscious in the dream, saying, okay, what if he fucked up? What if he's a bad hitman and he gets caught?
I think that might be most of the extent to it.
But there's like some really interesting stuff though. Like when the person gets shot, there was like the guy, like specifically the guy at the desk, when he gets shot in the head, there's like something that comes out of his head.
There's a focused shot on what looks like singed hair on his own head with a single blood droplet at the end of it.
Yeah.
Right? This is something that I was so confused about. And one of the interpretations that I read, it said that it's supposed to look like a holly berry.
Why?
Well, you know what? You have the power of the internet. Will you look up holly berry real quick?
Yeah, sure can.
Like a branch with like probably like a red berry at the end, I'm assuming.
Not like Halle Berry, because that's what's coming up.
Oh, like holly, like Hollywood.
I got it. It's coming now.
Okay.
I mean, I can see it.
I guarantee that that has like a popular...
They're poisonous.
It's poisonous. Okay. Does it have like a symbolic quality to it?
Christians have adopted the holly tree as a symbol for Christmas. The sharp leaves are said to symbolize the crown of thorns worn by Jesus, while the berries represent his blood.
All right. I was not expecting, if this is even what it is, was not expecting like a religious take on anything.
The berries are associated with the drops of blood shed for humanity's salvation. That's why they're associated with Christmas. I don't know if that has to do with the film, but I thought it was really unique. I thought like maybe they're memories or something. Like maybe it's something to do with the soul. Like I thought I'm like, okay, like this isn't a normal gun. This is like it had like some sort of psychedelic dream, like, okay, this gun kills people's ability to dream or something, or like distorts their memories. Because it like was just a really fucking weird scene to just have. Like so early on, I'm like,
comes
okay.
out of nowhere.
I'm like, okay, what's happening here? And then you have like the vacuum cleaner guy, which is like very clearly watching murder happen and then like continue to do his job. I'm like, okay, why?
And comes to the hitman when he requests him.
Yeah. Can't wrap my head around that scene in particular. I know what it could mean in terms of like his ability to not be a great hitman.
I think it's definitely just Betty wanting to believe that Rita would never be assassinated by, or Camila, whatever, would be assassinated by this man because he's so incompetent. And then I think maybe Lynch is just having fun, having a very like absurdist comedy scene. Something bit me real bad.
Yeah, it did.
And it barely even like attempts to tie it to Rita.
No.
They're talking about like a car accident kind of at the beginning of the scene.
I picked up on that.
Like it has to be that car crash, right? I'm confused by, I know this is an unreality. This whole aspect of the film is not real. But I was thinking about like the hierarchy of what's going on in terms of the conspiracy and the hitman. Because the hitman that we follow doesn't seem like he works with this guy at the desk. Like they just know each other. He kills him to get that book, which would then probably have Rita's name in it, and he would know that she has money, and that's like why he would go after her. Are they connected to the film conspiracy at all?
Yeah.
Like I have no
There's
idea.
so many layers of conspiracy involved where they don't really feel like they ever line up perfectly. I know that book is the same book that Diane/Betty sees when she actually meets with the hitman towards the end of the film, which I don't even think we've really even fucking talked about it, but like the concept of when you're having a dream, you can only see faces of people that you've met in real life. Your mind cannot make up faces. Your mind is not capable of it when you dream. So everybody that you see in your dream, even if you don't know who they are, there's somebody that you've seen before. That object is the same thing. Where, okay, that object is going to come back into play. These people that she sees, like particular in Winky's diner, that's a person that she saw. Our schizophrenic patient that we were following out to the back of the diner was the same guy that stared at her while she was sitting in the diner. So like there's a tie in there, yes, but it also doesn't really make a whole lot of sense when you try to apply that to everyone. I mean, it works for a lot of characters, but
Who is the bum then?
Exactly.
Where has she seen that? Or Mr. Rooks?
Yeah, I know.
I guess the face itself wouldn't stick out that much, but how her mind put together man behind glass screen, he's a dwarf, or what's the politically correct term for this now?
A little person.
A little person. But he's like inside a suit for a normal man. Very weird conceptually for the human mind to put these things together. But dreams are very weird at the same time. So.
Yeah. Lynch's expression through these scenes is very prominent, but it's hard to wrap your mind around because it is so unearthly and it's not based in true reality. And so when you try to like apply these symbolisms to these really bizarre situations that we find ourselves in, it becomes extremely convoluted. And like that's okay. I'm not mad at that, but it creates like this sense of like frustration in my own head where I'm like, okay, I don't know if like I'm fully on board with everything, even though I appreciate a lot of it. And I still do think it might be one of the greatest films that I've ever seen because I think there's so many fucking layers to like digest and understand. But there's a certain point where your brain's like, I've had enough of whatever this dissection may be. And at a certain point, you're going to have to stop and say, this is the finish line. You figured it out. It's like an ever evolving.
That's like the fun for me though. Like, I can watch this throughout my entire life and always have a different interpretation of certain elements. You said that everyone here realistically has to have been someone that Diane/Betty has seen in her life. That does not mean that she would portray them anywhere close to what they actually are. Like everyone is a projection of herself, just physically as someone else that she knows. And I think that plays out into Betty and Rita's dynamic, because I think Diane is projecting herself onto Rita more than Betty.
Okay. I mean, like quite literally when like she puts on a wig, but
yes, we'll get to that.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I feel like Rita is a truer incarnation of Diane.
Oh, dude. Okay, it's making more sense to me now. Diane is so self-obsessed. She's going to view Rita in a somewhat idyllic way that she wants to be loved and like received. And
it's kind of going both ways too. I mean, in the supposedly real relationship between these two people, Camila has all the power, but in the fantasy, she takes all independence away from her and like makes Rita depend on Betty completely.
Yeah, it's like she's on a leash.
There's characteristics going both ways here, I think. What's the one scene that we see twice from different perspectives?
The diner?
The limo.
Yeah.
We don't stop here. What is one thing that Rita has in common with Diane? I know we're crossing worlds here.
They're actresses?
Besides that,
I don't know.
I guess it's like loosely connected. Rita has amnesia from the accident that occurs on Mulholland Drive. Therefore, she does not remember like the
assassination attempt
on her. For Diane, when she goes up in the limo, it ends up being like a super traumatic moment in her life where she's embarrassed in front of everybody and Camila kind of flaunts the engagement in front of her. They both, it's almost as if Diane wishes she had the amnesia that she gives Rita in the fantasy. You know what I mean? Like forgetting the big trauma. Like that's what the whole fantasy is all about, right? I'm so pissed because this is only a small part of the puzzle. God damn it. That ties these two together.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry,
but yes,
you're fucking blowing my mind right now.
If you look at it in the way that Diane is projecting facets of her own life onto everybody, then you start picking up really weird small things from the other like reoccurring characters.
Well, like, I mean, that's like prevalent in the way that she views the director that she auditions in front of, like Bob, what's his face?
I think his name's Wally.
Yeah, you might be right.
In the fake audition, they do mention a guy named Bob Brooker, but that's like in the second half of the movie. See, now I'm gaining my momentum, and now I'm going to really start like getting into shit. God damn it.
Good.
I feel like I was like walking through quicksand for a while.
It's hard. I mean, it's a fucking hard movie to talk about, man. It's okay.
I didn't know how to get into it.
Wally Brown is the guy that introduces her to everybody, but the director is Bob, where Bob was the guy that like, he's the same director that Camilla in real life supposedly was like really helped her get her start and like liked her more than Betty, or excuse me, Diane. But that scene like portrays his incompetence because everybody is floored by her performance that she gives during this audition, and he's the one that like is like, oh yeah, really nice, really good, you know, really didn't even feel like he was paying attention.
He's barely there.
Yeah. In her mind, that's the same incompetence that would put her behind Camilla. Like, oh, it was a mistake.
Yeah. Like I put in the most amazing performance and he didn't even watch, really.
Yeah. Which, like, I think is even a testament to how Camilla's character is portrayed as this incompetent actress. Like, very stone-faced, wooden, not a lot of emotion. Even, like, outside of... She has this amnesia, and it, like, dulls her and dumbs her down. Diane/Betty is holding her hand the entire time throughout the whole film. She's trying to put her down in her own head, and everyone around her is a reflection of her own internal
like insecurities and yeah.
I guess like some of the things that like really that I found the most disturbing was like the masturbation scene that she has. I'm like so fucking disturbed by that.
Naomi Watts hated doing this scene too.
Oh, I'm sure.
I watched an interview that she has with David Lynch. It's just them two sitting together, like talking about the making of Mulholland Drive. She said that he kept making her do it over and over again.
Oh, no.
And like she was so upset, and she's like, David, I fucking hate this. And he's like, Lynch is like a very nice sounding man. I don't know if you've like seen how he sounds.
He's like pretty wholesome. He's kind. He has a kind voice.
He's on set and he's like, "You're doing great, Naomi." like not even like
super nasally.
Yeah. Extremely disturbing scene. Interesting, like filmmaking decisions here with like the camera going in and out of focus as if she's trying to like disassociate again.
I kind of viewed it as like an orgasmic thing where like the pressure in your head is so intense and like you're not really thinking about anything and your vision blurs and you're like not focused.
But it seems like she can't get there. She's upset. She's mad because it keeps going back into focus.
It's fucking disturbing. It's like really uncomfortable, but I think it as like uncomfortable and frustrating it is to watch, it speaks like volumes to like the way this character is. It's so strange in the context of the film because it feels like such a fall from grace from like what we viewed previously. This innocent, otherwise like kind and naive character that we've like kind of like essentially grown to love. I mean, it's a 2.5 hour film, so like you spend a lot of time just like along for the ride, even though like you're disturbed and confused at times and like certain vignettes. A lot of the wholesome moments come from Diane and Rita or Betty / Camilla doing their thing and like running around and trying to figure out what's going on. And you have like these small moments of fun and comfortability, and then like they're immediately derailed by like, oh, we're gonna look at like a dead body on a fucking bed right now. I'm like, oh god, I wasn't expecting that. It was like rot, like if someone's body was fucking decaying in front of us. I love the effect on screen of like the shaking.
Yeah, and I think
like the polarization. I don't know how to describe it. The weird visual effect.
It's like they're like leaving silhouettes behind constantly, like per frame. I think like that effect kind of goes into the whole Diane and Rita kind of having like qualities of the same person, like just kind of showing that maybe they're linked. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like the splitting of them with that visual effect. That entire sequence where they go to the apartments and look for Diane Selwyn, I'm confused on a lot of this. Like with the neighbor, Diane switched apartments with her.
So one thing that I picked up on with the neighbor, I don't know if you saw this or not, but the apartment has like boxes of stuff in it. Diane, like we've kind of already established that she is a lesbian. It kind of feels like that's her romantic relationships. Like she is a lesbian, and it almost kind of feels like the person that they knocked on the door that she switched apartments with in the end of the film, where she comes knocking on the door and like wants her shit and like that's my lamp, and there's a sense of familiarity with these two, and like, okay, is she like somebody that she slept around with after Camilla? Did
they live in the same apartment at one time?
Yeah.
And that's like Diane's way of diluting the fact that they broke up. Like, in the dream, we just switched apartments instead of like we lived together and broke up.
Yeah, and the other thing is I'm thinking too is like, is Camilla even like a real person? Like, is Camilla Diane? And is Diane having a fall from grace? Like, did all this happen with Diane? Like, did she fall in love with this director? Or we're getting there. There are like small elements of that where I think you can step back and say, hey, okay, Diane and Camilla were a couple, and like it can kind of make sense that way. But it's like, okay, if you kind of like view Diane and Camilla as the same person, and like this juxtaposition of personality and like the way she views herself, like polarity of like insecurity or like self-indulgence and praise, like when they blend together, when you separate these two characters, one is Diane and one is Camilla, the director looked at Diane when he was going through auditions with, this is the girl. I'm like, okay. Like he like looked at her, it was like love at first sight type of thing. When you view Diane when she's like on set with the director and Camilla and the way she's looking at them in the car, and like it kind of feels like there's a sense of manipulative, boastful, shameful Camilla trying to put down Diane, but it's like that is so out there. Like I don't know that human nature would allow that to happen. Like I don't know if like that could happen in real life. Like this sense of like let's fucking shame her by like let's make out in front of her. Like that would be like, oh, you be breaking fucking union rules by making out on set and shit like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, like, is Diane Camilla? And like, did this happen to her?
I think you're onto something here.
It's a what if.
It's an interpretation. When you said the phrase, is Camila even a person? That perked my ears up because this is something I wanted to get into. Remember earlier when I said I'm not sure if I fully buy the dream versus reality theory about the film? I think the two separate parts are just like polar opposite realities, or like they're polar opposites of the same idea, but neither of them is reality. And the people that fulfill these realities are really just physical manifestations of concepts. And I think that, and this is getting into that Hollywood is dirty and deceptive idea. I've seen that Camilla might be the human embodiment of like the Hollywood casting couch. When we see Diane go to the party with like the engagement announcement, Diane, she's explaining to this other version of Coco about how Camila helped me get some roles. And Coco like pats her arm as if like
good
she's
for you.
Like not like a good for you, more like a I feel you because you've been through something terrible.
Oh, I didn't view it like that. I viewed it as a I'm sorry, honey, like it didn't all work out for you.
I think that the idea is that this is gonna get so hard to explain.
It's okay.
God damn it. I think there's some form of like you have to sleep not with Camilla exactly per se, but in Diane's situation, maybe that's what she had to do to get the roles. Like she had to have been like a tag along love
to a director type of thing.
Yeah. They start speaking Spanish randomly during the scene, and I looked up the translation of what they said. Someone off screen says, "Did she go to Casablanca with Luigi?" And this sounds like a sexual euphemism to me. There's an immediate cut to Angelo Badalmenti's character, who is Luigi, and she sees him. And I think like maybe this is the guy that you gotta fuck to get to the top type deal.
Like classic Hollywood type shit.
Yes.
Like your Harvey Weinstein type of shit.
I think this movie overall is a very convoluted way of David Lynch exposing that like years before it ever truly came out, like in his own way.
Oh my God. Fuck. You're right.
When Diane takes the limousine ride up to...
Oh my God.
I'm going to blow your mind. I'm going to keep blowing your mind. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, whoever's listening to this. I'm getting my fucking brain blown apart. Holy shit. Oh my God. You're so fucking right.
When Diane takes the limousine ride up to this party, they stop randomly. And this is where the line, "What are you doing? You don't stop here." Because I think driving up the Mulholland Drive, which is a road that goes directly under the Hollywood sign, by the way, like the drive itself is symbolic of the rise to the top of Hollywood. But she stopped, and Camila gets her out of the car and says, "Here's a shortcut." And then they take the woods up to the party where they go through the back door of the house. And I think that is symbolically showing you that the way to the top is to fuck your way there, basically.
Yeah.
Because, and maybe Betty wasn't as willing to do that.
Fuck, you're right. You're right.
This blew my mind, too. Like, this is something that I was onto it kind of around my third or fourth watch. Like I was trying to catch those moments, but then the video that I watched last night like really put this shit together for me.
My God, dude.
The touchy-feely guy during her fantasy audition with like Wally.
Yeah. And like that was so fucking uncomfortable.
Because as soon as it's about to start, I'm like, oh God, poor Betty. Like, let's not put her in this situation.
But then like she
embraces the fuck out of it.
She does, and she uses it to her advantage.
And in this other reality, it's her like righting the wrongs of this other reality.
Dude, and that makes so much sense when you think about the ending of the film where you have the innocent elderly couple that was her root that sent her along the way, where it's like her innocence is coming back to haunt her.
It's the realization that the Hollywood dream is kind of bullshit.
Oh my God, you're fucking right.
Isn't this crazy?
God.
And I feel like there's allusions to it throughout other parts.
Oh my God.
So that's kind of why I think that Camila is more of a concept than like a human in these two realities.
It's like the lustful, dumb, passive sexualization of an actress. And that was her at one point. And oh my God, okay. I love that theory. Like, I love that so much.
That's the one that I bought into the most in terms of like this being deeper than just, here's reality
in a dream.
Yeah.
And then like, I think that like has more implication too when you like think about like the bum, because like the bum can be interpreted like, because you have like the box, the blue box and the blue key. And okay, well, like now what does the hitman mean? Like, is the hitman the part of Diane that wants to kill herself? And like, it is the part of her psyche that wants to like fully commit to suicide. Do I want to kill myself, or do I want to have somebody else kill me? I want there to be a conspiracy against me.
I did not think about it this way.
Well, you're fucking opening doors. So like the bum is still like the part of Diane that she can't face, but it's also, it's like her suicidal tendencies. It's her ugliest, darkest, dirtiest self that like sets her upon this path of like self-destruction, because the blue box is set up by the bum and she hires the hitman, and the hitman's calling card is the blue key. Does she set herself up upon the path of like this fantasy world that we lie in? Is it just an expression of how can I die in some facet?
Okay.
How can I like end this shame? When you blend the idea of Diane and Camilla being essentially the same person, I think that kind of creates the structure of the film as an expression fully of her psyche. When you try to view it completely like this dream reality duality of complete polar opposites of innocence and dark, dirty grit of like, I'm going to taint your innocence by like making you fuck your way to the top, and then you're going to be so in shame of what you've done that you're going to want to die. The whole fantasy world that we've taken this journey through in this entire film, it's a way for her body, like her psyche, to kill herself, like in some facet. Like it's a journey from beginning to end of like, I want to die in shame. And it's like conflicting emotions of, I want to kill myself, but I don't have the strength to kill myself. I want to hire a hit on this woman because she hurt me. But like, is it a wish? Does her person like, does her, God, it's so hard to talk about. But like when you split the personality, like, do I create a love story that I went through and I hurt this person and this person hurt me, and I want this person to be so mad that she kills me?
There might be something to this, because some of the final shots in the movie are like these fading images of faces on top of each other. Like, I think the first one literally is, it shows the bum's face and then it fades out.
And then
like
it like shows Camilla and Diane or / Betty like
together.
Like it's golden, radiant, pure white. I think they even have like the same haircut. Almost positive in the same film, like the same ending. And then when you think about the way the film frames itself in the intro, you get like the Jubilee dancing contest, and then the old couple and her like posing under the spotlight. When you start that and when you finish it that way, it's only really about Diane. When you frame the duality of Diane and Camilla, a split personality being the same person, or like the embodiment of two different points that this person was in their life coming together, it kind of feels like a perfect union in some facet of like, I was the same person. The lustful nature and the dark nature and the manipulative and the fuck your way to the top, compared to the innocent, perfect, untainted, almost virgin character.
Betty, yeah.
They hold the same value. They're just as valid. And like when I die, I realize that now. Like it's just
that's a lot to process.
It's a lot.
By the way.
How do you think I felt? I'm over here like fucking trying. I'm like suffocating over here.
But it definitely feels like there's something to that theory. The whole idea of, I know you just went on about like how these things relate to the lockbox and the key.
Yeah, I know that wasn't eloquent, but like I'm trying.
This is something I had a hard time over the viewings with the first few, thinking, okay, the lockbox and the key, that's like Betty's secret. They lock it away, but then once she unlocks it, that kind of like kills this first part of the movie and transitions into the next reality. Is the lockbox containing the Hollywood secret of like the sexual abuse that's going on behind the scenes? Like there's a facet to that as well.
We haven't like talked about like the cowboy and like his implementation into the like the way he affects the director, which like I love the director's vignettes. Like I love them. Like they were some of my favorite points in the film.
Yeah.
I think when you try to frame it in that way, is it a way for her to say there are like essentially 4 to 5 men that affected my life and like made me do these things and like allowed this conspiracy to arise? Like, okay, the cowboy met with the director and these producers, the Luigi brothers, like whatever the fuck their names are, you know what I mean? The Italians.
Yeah.
The espresso guys. There's like this huge conspiracy against me, and they're going to essentially fucking prostitute me for everyone's own enjoyment. This is the girl.
And the cowboy's presence is more of a simplified supernatural explanation to what in this other reality is like
Or
abuse.
Like, yeah, essentially like, okay, there's guys in suits and ties. They're like, oh, isn't she great? Wink, wink, nod, nod.
Are we assuming that in this first reality that the cowboy is like kind of the top of the food chain in
He's
terms
like,
of like Mr. Rooks and the mobsters?
He feels like, to me, he feels like the fixer. Let's set things in motion. Like he feels like our Mike Ehrmantraut of, like he's the, I'm going to meet with you and I'm going to say these things to you and you can do this or you cannot.
He feels so much more like godly than like everybody else,
like
though.
Supernatural. He kind of has the same presence as our bum character, where it's like there's something sinister yet cold and absolute law involved with it. You know what I mean? Like there's a sense of truth. Like there's a book of operations that he comes from, a sense of finality.
And you get the idea that the cowboy has been around for a long time. He's not bound by like the space-time continuum even. Can I say how much I love this scene between
Oh my God.
Adam Kesher and him?
I love the when he pulls up in his fucking Porsche and it's completely dark and then like the one light bulb comes on and then it goes off at the end, it fades off. I think that adds like that supernatural element. You know what I mean? Like where I think like obviously there's surrealism and dreamscape involved. In this particular scene, it felt like there's like a weird godly presence to him. And I almost mean that like negative connotation. Like it's almost demonic. I think on the surface when you look at him, he can kind of just like, you know, plain Jane dude. And he's the cowboy. He looks like a cowboy. He's just a normal looking dude. He doesn't really feel sinister. He's just cold.
The way that Adam Kesher's like vignettes or scenes lead up into this moment make it so much better, because I feel like in this like more dreamy first half or like first 3/4 of the movie, Adam Kesher is like the one character that kind of
questions.
He recognizes the absurdity.
Yeah.
I mean, like when like the guys are yelling about the espresso and the help me, like Kesher's like, what's going on? Like I have no idea. He's kind of the audience surrogate for a while, because Betty is so disconnected from a lot of the negativity. She's off having like a Nancy Drew comic book adventure, basically, like having fun. Like, oh, you're missing.
I'm in Candyland. Yeah.
Yeah. I love the dialogue that these two share, where Kesher's like, what do you want? And he says, you're a man that likes to get down to it. Kind of anxious to get down to it, aren't you? Like,
yeah. He says, don't you think that a man's attitude affects his life, essentially? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, did you say that because you think I wanted to hear you agree with it? Or do you actually believe that? He's like, and I want you to think about it. He's like, okay, I'm thinking. I love that dialogue, man. That's like, that is fucking bizarre.
It feels just enough like a real conversation, but it's vague enough to kind of be menacing.
Yeah.
But neither of the characters are really playing it up like something menacing is going on. Adam, it kind of seems like he feels this whole thing is bullshit.
Yeah, he feels like comfortable with. He's like, okay, now tell me what to do.
And then even the cowboy's anger, like, you're being a smart aleck. Like, he doesn't show anger either. He's very calm and collected as well. I don't know. I kind of wish that we got a little bit more of the cowboy. I guess we see him a few more times in even more confusing circumstances.
Yeah, like Time to Wake Up.
That's the most confusing one to me.
I think that is the implication where it feels like, okay, that line really allows the dream dual reality to be interpreted the most comfortably. But I'm also like, it's literally the same shot as when Diane and Camilla go and find the dead body.
Yeah.
And so it's like, part of me still thinks that like that is just another route for us to view the fact that she killed herself.
Or has suicidal thoughts.
Yeah. I don't know that like the way that scene is portrayed, if we view Diane in the end where she kills herself, I almost think that's like a non-linear route for like her character. Like she's already dead in that moment. That's almost a way for her character to say, hey, we're dead. although you can't view yourself posthumously.
I know they say that your life flashes before your eyes when you die, but even then, I feel like that's like a little too on the nose for this movie.
Yeah, it kind of just feels like it's so dreamlike. It's like such an echo of whatever is trying to be conveyed. It's hard to talk about. It's so high concept.
The most interesting thing to me about their conversation is he says, if you see me one more time, you've done good. But if you see me 2 more times, you've done bad. How many more times do we see the cowboy? 3?
I think so. Or is it 2 more times? We see him on screen when he says that, when he says, time to wake up. And we see him when he walks past.
In the background.
Yeah. I caught him.
Now, I don't understand the context of this. Like, you've done good or you've done bad. I mean, clearly...
Is it applicable to Diane, though? Did Diane do bad?
Yeah. The cowboy talking to Adam in this world, Adam is just a projection of Diane.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying, like, the whole reality is Diane.
Yes.
It is her psyche. Every character is a part of her and an expression of how she feels. And the cowboy showing up 2 more times is the same tie-in as, like, she's fallen from grace. She fucked her way to the top and she quit. She quit playing along.
Or they used her up and didn't need her anymore.
Exactly. And she did bad. She saw him 2 more times.
I think you're right about that, by the way. I think there's a lot of credence to that. Big thing for me, when I mentioned earlier the whole did you go to Casablanca with Luigi thing, when that line is said and Diane sees the Luigi guy, the cowboy is in the background, like literally within 10 seconds of these shots. So in my mind, that says Diane links the sexual abuse stuff with this man who she doesn't even know.
Or like he's the guy that comes and talks to her when she has reservations about, do I want to do this or not? He's the guy that says, honey, come along. This is what's going to happen if you do this, and this is what's going to happen if you don't do this.
That's totally possible.
And then, you know what's really scary?
What's
like
that?
when this film was made, I think like when you frame it in what's happening now with the revelation that society has had with like the Jeffrey Epstein and like the Harvey Weinstein stuff, like all this like really dark sexual abuse and really fucked up compromisation of like celebrity and politicians. I think it's so applicable to like when you view the film this way, I think it really helps get across the idea that like maybe David Lynch was trying to say something. I'm not saying like he's a fucking like, you know, he's a fucking whistleblower, but it's like the man seems wholesome enough to where like he wanted to say something.
He seems so far removed from like the Hollywood system
Exactly.
as we know it. And I think it definitely might be his way of just, I think it is whistleblowing in a way.
And I think what's really interesting about this is that when his films are viewed this way, when they're so high concept, it's a way for him to hide certain themes. And it's the same thing that happened with Kubrick. I don't know if you ever, I mean, I know you have it upstairs and Liv watched it without you, but Eyes Wide Shut is one of those films. There is like 20 to 40 minutes, I can't remember the exact amount of time, of footage that was cut from that film because it was too on the nose.
Oh, like coming close to
reality.
A semi-recent movie called Under the Silver Lake had the same themes and was kind of cut down by the studio, like unadvertised, made to bomb so nobody saw it. This is a running theme in a recent Hollywood history, it seems.
Yeah, man. It's dark. Although I think it's a good thing to talk about. Because when you do talk about it, it raises awareness to be like, okay, like, hey guys, just remember, not everything you see is perfect. Like when I'm at work all the time, I look at the TV that we have on in the lobby area for our customers, and I'm like, they're watching Good Morning America right now. It's like literally advertisement.
Oh my God, I haven't thought about Good Morning America in such a long time.
I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, dude, this is the fucking system at play right here. And it's just strange, man. I'm not saying like there's a conspiracy all day long, but like let's be realistic, and like there are people in power that will do things that are to their benefit. And even if there isn't like a formal conspiracy written down on paper, there are people that will abuse power, and that manifests itself in all facets of life. And it's fucking dark, man.
If this was truly Lynch's intention in 2001 or 1999, whenever they started filming this, it's crazy that, when did Harvey Weinstein get in trouble, by the way?
Like 4 years ago now, I think, like 3 to 4 years ago.
2019. I know it was pre-COVID. So 18, 19, something like that. It's crazy that the real life context almost 20 years later would shine light into the meaning of this movie, where like maybe that theme wouldn't have been as apparent. It's there for sure.
Yeah.
Like I think you could read that Betty's first audition scene being kind of weird. Like you're like, oh no, like here comes the old man like touching the lady basically. Like I think anybody could see that back then. With the context that we have now, it makes analyzing a lot of this movie a lot easier. You know what I mean?
Well, like I think even filmmaking wise, when you view those scenes, like if that's true, it shines light on the fact that when she rehearsed those lines, it was like innocent and fun. And then when it came down to brass tacks and you had to do that shit in front of people and you have somebody trying to manipulate you and take advantage of you in front of you, it's like, do you crumble in front of that or do you take advantage of it and use your sexuality to your advantage, even though like it shames you?
Piss break. Fun fact about the cowboy. He's played by a guy named Monty, who is a non-actor. He's a producer that's friends with David Lynch. When Lynch was conceptualizing the idea of the cowboy, this Monty guy walked into the room and Lynch looked at him and was just like, Monty, you should be the cowboy. And I think that's how he got cast in the role. But
Okay.
But he's not a real actor. He had a lot of trouble remembering his lines. So they taped cue cards to the actor that played Adam Kesher.
Oh, really?
So I think you can actually kind of see it in the scene because the eye height that Monty or the cowboy has, it looks like he's looking down a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
It's because
That
he's
makes
reading
sense.
his own lines.
That's hilarious.
Off of, Adam or Justin Theroux. But that's funny to me because like how powerful he is within the story. It's like it's just a guy that couldn't remember his lines.
Yeah.
I guess we kind of talked about this off the air, but I said there is really no conclusion to like talking about Mulholland Drive because you tie yourself in knots. As soon as you have one epiphany, then you've got a hole somewhere else that you got to plug. But I wanted to talk about when Mulholland Drive was released on DVD, it came with a little booklet, and this is the first time that Lynch has ever done this, but it was 10 clues to discovering the secret of Mulholland Drive.
Okay.
Do you care if I read some of them off to
Go
you?
right ahead. Yeah.
It says, pay particular attention in the beginning of the film. At least 2 clues are revealed before the credits. I'm assuming this is the duplication used in like the opening scene or like the title montage with the dancers like showing multiples of everybody was kind of a clue as to there's 2 parts to everybody. This is a big one to me that is very vague but feels like it could unlock something. It says, notice appearances of the red lampshade.
Yeah. Picking up the phone.
There's only 2 shots in the whole movie that show a red lampshade. And the first time is when like the chain of phone calls between like the old men looking for Rita, and the last call goes to a phone underneath a red lampshade that nobody answers. And we later find out that this is Diane's phone. What is the name of the part of town where you go to get a prostitute?
The red light district.
The red light district. What subject matter might this movie be covering? Prostituting yourself out to Hollywood. I think that's like the red lampshade.
Okay.
That's like his way of...
Yeah. And it makes sense because Camilla is the one that calls. It's that personification of like, let's whore yourself out.
There is... Can you hear the title of the film that Adam Kesher is auditioning actresses for? Is it mentioned again?
I don't remember.
It's the Sylvia North story.
Okay.
It's the movie that Adam Kesher is directing in the fantasy world.
Yeah.
But in the other side of reality here, Adam Kesher did not direct this movie. It was the Bob Brooker movie that Diane did not get picked for.
Yeah.
Like trying to tie these two things together. This is like kind of like all stuff that we may have covered in some capacity. An accident is a terrible event. Notice the location of the accident. I think that's
Mulholland Drive.
Yeah. Rita has amnesia. Diane wants to forget. That's like kind of what I brought in earlier. Notice the robe, the ashtray, and the coffee cup. This is one I don't have figured out at all.
Okay.
Like, what robe?
I don't remember the robe.
Rita wears a red robe during the fantasy section of the film where she's staying with Betty.
I think Diane wears a robe in the end.
She does. Like, consistently is wearing a robe in the apartment. The ashtray is next to the red lampshade, right?
I think.
We see that ashtray twice. There's a second ashtray that the neighbor comes to get from Diane's apartment.
Yeah. That's my ashtray.
And it's like a piano-looking ashtray.
Yeah.
Like, what's the significance of that?
Okay.
Which ashtray is Lynch talking about? Which robe is he talking about? What coffee cup?
I don't remember a coffee cup anywhere. I think she makes coffee at one point at the end.
There's a few times in that last 20 minutes where they're drinking coffee. I have one idea. The espresso scene with like the Luigi brothers. The cup that this Luigi guy is drinking out of is the same one that Diane is sipping out of at the engagement party. But in her scene, the cup is almost the exact same, except the markings on it make it look like it says SOS. But in the fantasy scene with the espresso, it doesn't say SOS, but the guy next to him screams, "Help me." So there's a tie-in there. But I don't know what the robe, the ashtray, and the coffee cup have to do with each other.
I think they just are probably tying in the fact that it's like, okay, hey, remember, this is Diane's story, and this is part of her psyche being like, fucking help me. This shit is happening to me.
Because I noticed that she drinks out of the same exact coffee cup in her apartment that she does at Winky's. Like, it's a very distinct maroon mug that she has at both places in the scenes that we see her drinking coffee. Don't know what that means. Also, what is the purpose of drinking coffee, by the way?
Get energized, bro.
It's to wake you up.
Okay.
And I feel like it's not really shown being drunk by one of the main characters until the second reality, I think.
Makes sense when you think about the guy screaming, help me and shit. It's like a projection of her psyche.
I'm going to blow through these last few real quick because I don't have the answers to them. It says, what is felt, realized, and gathered at the Club Silencio? Did talent alone help Camila? Which one, by the way? Note the occurrences surrounding the man behind Winky's. Number 10 is, where is Aunt Ruth? That's one that puzzles me a ton because there has to be something to that.
I wonder if, like, Aunt Ruth was trying to say to her with, like, the Camilla, like, who is this girl? Why is she staying in your apartment? Was a part of her aunt being like, be careful, honey, who you hang around and what you do. And, like, her aunt's been in the film industry before. So it's like she's saying, hey, be careful what you do. These people might take advantage of you. You don't want somebody to take advantage of you. Like, okay, Camilla's staying at your apartment. Like, I don't know who Camilla is. I need you to be careful. And, like, Coco does the same thing.
And to Camilla, like, if she's the embodiment of sexual abuse in Hollywood, then, like, you have these older characters warning Betty about it.
Yeah.
Because, like, Coco, played by Ann Miller, classic 50s actress, the robed woman that knocks on her door and says, like,
there's trouble here.
There's trouble here. That is Lee Grant, an other classic 50s actress. And, like, maybe, I don't know about Aunt Ruth, but I think there's something to, like, golden age actresses being the ones to warn Betty about, like, the trouble that lies ahead.
Because it was probably so much more prevalent back then.
I think there's something to the name Aunt Ruth. If you separate some of the letters, specifically one, Aunt Ruth can also be a untruth. And I think that's interesting.
Okay.
And I think maybe there's something to that, or maybe coincidence. I don't know. Apparently, these are the 10 clues to truly unlocking Mulholland Drive. And I think, like, some of them we explored.
I think we're on the right track with, like, the sexual abuse stuff. It feels so much more true to maybe, like, what Lynch was trying to do compared to this dream double. Diane hates Camilla. And, like, I think, like, when you think about, like, the lesbian scenes and stuff where she's like, we have to stop doing this. Where it's like, okay, we have to stop sleeping with people.
Camilla says that.
Yeah. It's like, we need to stop doing this.
I don't know if that's what she means, though.
I think, like, she's saying, like, we need to stop sleeping with these producers and these directors to get our way to the top. We have to end this.
She says that, but she doesn't change her ways, though. Because, like, she marries the director, like, immediately after this. Like, she ends the relationship to get with Adam, I think?
No, but
What is the timeline here?
I think it's just saying, like, we have to end this prostitution of ourselves to Hollywood. Like, it's Diane. It's Diane talking to herself. It's not like the relational bullshit. It's we have to stop doing this. And you've known that for a while.
That's if Diane is a person that is perceiving one of these realities. I don't know if either of these realities is like being portrayed as, God, I'm going
the
off
truth.
I'm going off my mind here. These are split versions of some kind of truth, but they're extremist. Like, of course, the first half, it's warm, it's hazy, more optimistic. And then the second is like, maybe it is reality in some way, but it's a very exaggerated, depressing. You're looking at your bad memories with strong emotions.
Yeah,
And
the
this is
fullest
what
of trauma, yeah.
This is what you're seeing, like through those lens. I'm confusing myself by talking. God damn it.
Welcome to the human experience, my friend. No, I think we've done enough. I think we've done enough.
I don't know.
I don't want to keep talking in circles. I will say the conversation that we have had over this film has been so high concept and in depth that I think it is a testament to how well the film is made. We really didn't even talk a whole lot about technicals.
Not really, no.
And that's fine.
Sound design, by the way,
it's
is
impeccable.
impeccable.
Great.
That's what makes the whole thing so fucking atmospheric and dreadful. Yeah, I have a few things written down about colors and symbols, like the black box.
I mean, the blue box.
I'm sorry, the black book is typically referred to as a book in which you keep your former lover's numbers or call girls. So like that's another prostitution thing. The one that I literally obsessed with all day today. This is the last. I swear to God, this is the last thing I gotta say. There's a lot of symbolism involving blue roses.
Okay.
Which is not a real thing in reality. In many scenes that Betty and Rita are in, there are either pictures of blue roses like in the room or a vase of blue roses like present physically. What is the very last like 10 seconds of the movie? The very last thing you see?
I don't know. I'm trying to think.
You see Diane shoot herself, and then
It's like dreamy sequence, yeah.
it shows Club Silencio again.
Yeah. The girl with the blue hair.
It's empty this time, and there's like a blue filter with like a shininess to it. And the mic stand through this filter
Yeah.
looks like a blue rose all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to the woman with the blue hair, and like her hairdo looks like a rose kind of. So she has blue hair in the shape of a rose.
Yeah.
And that's the final shot of the movie where she says Silencio. There has to be something to this. Like what does a blue rose symbolize? There's a lot of blueness in other Lynch films as
Blue
well.
Velvet,
like
yeah.
Blue Velvet and blue roses appear in Twin Peaks, and
Blue is associated with sadness, like typically color-wise.
the fact that the very last shot
Yeah.
of this movie is a blue-haired woman,
Saying silencio,
Like-
silence.
it doesn't mean nothing, you know?
Yeah,
Like
it means something.
there's something here, but I have no idea. And it can't be as simple as like sadness.
Or
I
like
feel.
it can't be just, it's quiet now, you know? Like the suffering is over.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that's why I love this movie, because I'm going to be thinking about blue roses for some reason for like a month now. And I may never have an answer for that.
I feel like we just scratched the surface even though we went so in depth. It's what's really frustrating. It makes it a hard conversation to cap, but I think it's like one of the best films we've ever talked about outside of like Moneyball and other fucking masterpieces we think we've seen on the podcast.
This is very easily like in my top 5 movies now, maybe. Hey man, in my teens, I had Fight Club, and in my 20s, Birdman, and then going into my 30s here soon, Mulholland Drive. Coincidentally, all 3 of these movies have something to do with split psyche, by the way. So I don't know what that says about me as a person, but go on. Sorry, I'm like very interrupty right now.
No, you're all right, man. I think like rating wise, I think it has to be like a masterpiece 10 out of 10. I think it's the only way.
I give it 100 out of 10.
Yeah. It's really good, man. It's special.
It'll haunt my dreams for eternity in like many different ways. For that reason, it's a very special film to me. If you let me go on, I will go on. I'll say, wait a second, hold on. Here's this thing I forgot.
We're going to be talking about this off the air for a long time, man. It's all good.
I think we will. But with that being said, Austin, it is your turn. You have the floor. Please let me know, what are we doing next time for the thing?
My recommendation is something that I've wanted to do. I've been like kind of on like my like criminally underrated list for a little while now. Like it's kind of my direction. Like just films that I think I want to knock out.
I've noticed this.
Yeah. I've done it with Tron, did it with Last Samurai. This is another film that like I kind of hold near and dear to my heart. I haven't seen it in quite a long time. I think it's a good thing. I'm really excited to like hop back into it. But this is a film that there's a performance, not even by like our two main characters, but by a man of the name of Nick Nolte that was nominated for Best Supporting Actor for the year's Oscar that it was filmed in. And there is a soundtrack with The National, at least they make up part of it. This is a film in 2011 called The Warrior. Or excuse me, just Warrior. But I've been wanting to do this for a while because like I'm a huge UFC fan. I don't know that this film captures that culture perfectly because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I would just say that like there are things going on in this film that I think are extremely special. There are going to be moments I think that will actually make you weep. And there will be moments where I'm like, fuck you, man. Like that's cheesy. It's going to be one of those like kind of bittersweet, slightly frustrated and in complete awe of like certain performance. And like this is a special film for me. Like I love this one, so I'm really fucking hyped to talk about it.
Dude, this is kind of funny. Last weekend I was at the library looking for movies to check out, and I came upon Warrior, and I was going to grab it, and I thought I can't watch it before Austin recommends it for the podcast, and I knew that it was coming at some point. I didn't know it was coming this soon.
Yeah.
But The National? What?
Yeah, The National. This is a movie that fucking flopped, man. It fucking flopped.
Really?
And yeah, Nick Nolte gets fucking snubbed for his performance. It is there are some really powerful things going on in this film that I think you'll really enjoy, like alcoholism and like trauma and like financial struggles and then like brotherly love. I think you'll get a lot out of it. And I think like at the age that you and I currently are in, I'm 24, you're old as fuck. Like
I am.
We'll
I'm degrading as I sit here.
I feel like we'll get a lot out of it. And I think you and I both having brothers as siblings, it'll be like a really emotional conversation, at least like in the direction that I feel like we'll take it. So I'm really excited to talk about it.
Well, hell yeah, man. Same screenwriters as Tron Legacy. I brought that up on
Yeah, we did. That's kind of crazy. Yeah.
This is like a well-reviewed movie, though, right? It may have flopped in the box office, but I thought people liked this one a lot.
I think it's got like a 70-ish, Rotten Tomatoes. Like it's kind of like it sits in the middle of the pack.
It's for the people. The people like this one a lot more.
It's for the
critics.
white trash, man. It's the white trash film.
I'm down for that.
All right, cool, man. Yeah, but until next time, I had a lot of fun. This was a really, really great conversation. But Get Over, you could do me the honors and sign us out for the night.
Silencio.